So my name is Jasmine Waddell, and I am the head of the Career Development Center here at Heller. I have the distinct pleasure and honor to introduce today's speaker, Farhat Jilabhoy.
Farhat Jilabhoy, you did a pretty darn good job.
I'll get better. So I've had the pleasure of meeting Farhat a couple of times. She is an SID graduate from 2014. So she's had a couple minutes to do some really cool things that she'll tell you about, I'm sure. And she's also a member of the alumni board for Heller. So she cares really deeply about the student experience and about career development for our students. So this is a career conversation, and I'm gonna turn it over to Farhat to take it away.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jasmine. I really want to emphasize the conversation part, right? I would, there's so many things that, we could talk about today, but I'd love to tailor this conversation to your needs. So as you feel comfortable, either on camera or off, I actually want to invite each of you to introduce yourselves, share with me what program that you're from, where do you consider home, and what's one thing that you'd like to get out of this conversation? So I did get my notebook. I'm ready, taking notes as well. But I want to make sure that this conversation has meaning for you today. You're giving up an hour of your time as well. So perhaps what I'm going to do is I'll start off with someone. I'll pick someone, and then I'd love for you to popcorn it to someone else. Okay, and thank you for coming off camera. And it does, okay, is that Morris? You're the first one, if you don't mind, starting us off. So, your name, where your program, year, where's home, and what do you hope to get out of this conversation?
Hi, everybody. My name is Morris Kroma. I am originally from West Africa, Liberia, but I've been in the US for well over 10 years, and I'm CITCO second year student. And I'm browsing for opportunities once I'm done, because I have about one more semester to go, and I'm really eager to hear what's this conversation is going to center around. Thank you.
Well, what kind of opportunities are you looking for, Morris?
So because I have a background in conflict resolution and sustainable international development, hoping opportunities that can take me to conflict countries, where there's disaster management, stuff like that.
Okay, yeah. Great, thank you. Do you want to popcorn it to one of your classmates?
Let me call on Pervis. Pervis, you gotta put the camera on, man.
You're on mute, Pervis. I think you're still on mute. Yeah. Okay, maybe we can pass it and then come back to you when you're able to get off mute. I think, is it Solange? Am I saying that correctly?
Use not to
Isaac, please mute yourself.
And do you want to call on someone else, Morris?
Dodgy, I see Dodgy, so I'm just gonna call her.
Hi, thank you for this opportunity. My name is Dorjiki. I'm from Tibet, but I grew up in India. And this is my first semester doing sustainable international development at Heller. And through this conversation, I would like to know more about Save the Children, the work that you do, and also look at possibilities of doing internship with you guys. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks, Dorji.
Thank you.
Oh, and who do you want to select? Popcorn it over to someone, Dorji.
Maybe Selenge.
Selenge, ca- can you come off of mute? Yes.
So, sorry, I'm not alone. That's why I can't speak. Sorry.
So, okay, don't worry. We'll pass it on to someone else. Emmanuel, do you want to go take it away? And you're on mute.
You're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Hi everyone. I'm Emmanuel M. Codmo. I'm from Liberia. Since the journalist works in Liberia, so I would like to know more about the work they do in Liberia and the possibility of hiring people from students from the Brandeis University upon graduation and return to Liberia. So I'm in a Sustainable International Development Program. This is my first semester, my first year. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Okay. Who do you want to pass it to, Emmanuel? And maybe people can raise their hand if you're not able to speak too. Okay, Tenzin, thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, hi everyone. Thank you so much for coming to share your thoughts about with us in Brandeis. Hello, it is a great opportunity, and I go through your LinkedIn, and it was so impressive. You graduated in 2014, and over the time you did a lot of impressive things with the very important international organizations, which is really impressive for me. And actually, so many of your skills are resonating with me, with what I actually would like to specialize into. And I'm doing my Hello Sustainable International Development. This is my second year, and I'm graduating in December, which is exciting and a lot of works to do, actually, as you know. And I finished my. I have experience in monitoring and evaluation back in India. I'm originally from Tibet, and I came to India. I spent 20 years in India, and then I came for my postgraduate in America, and now I'm planning to stay in America, and I already have the work permit, so I'm allowed to work. Fortunately, recently I got the work permit, so that's really good one. That makes me really happy, actually.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And then I did an internship at the IRC as a monitoring and evaluation for the last 6 months, and it went so well. And now I have I really looking forward to work for Save the Children, because which resonates, Save the Children, whatever the work Save the Children does, which resonate with me, because I came from Tibet at a very young age, around 6 years old, and then I grown up in refugee camp in India, and all my educations, I got education in a refugee school, and with so many humanity support. Whatever I've become, I'm the product of that support. So whatever Save the Children does, which really touches me, and I things that I would like to do are as I have experience in monitoring and evaluation, I'm thinking of finding a job related with monitoring and evaluation, and also program designing and program management. In the field of education as well as humanitarian.
Okay, thank you so much. And I see Jennifer's on camera. So Jennifer, if you don't mind, and then we can see if anyone else would like to speak up.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for dedicating this time to us. And I'm Jennifer. I was born and raised, and I come from El Salvador. And what I expect, or what I hope to get out of this conversation, is that I would like to have a very better perspective of the opportunities in Save the Children that combine humanitarian aid with my background, which is economic development and international development and data management. I'm second year sustainable international development student, and I'm graduating next May. So I'm just trying to see what my opportunities are, because I want to continue in research. So I'm interested in that. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Anyone else want to speak up? I understand some folks aren't in a place that they can. Okay, go ahead, take it away.
Hi, this is Pervez. I'm Pervez Ahmed from Pakistan, and I am in final semester in Sustainable International Development. So I will be graduating in December. I worked with the humanitarian sector. I worked with development sector for about 18 years. And I remain about 12 years with the monitoring evaluation in project assessments. During my association with the humanitarian program, which was basically working with flood affectees for information management and dissemination to the government officials on flood response. So that I was leading the team for the operation 2011. So I'm really interested because at the crossroad of development, I think the humanitarian, or we can say disaster management, is a kind of a cross-sectional subject within the development sector that it requires, because it's a source of interruption in development, that whenever people recover from disaster, have economic prosperity, then these natural calamities or man-made calamities do send people back to poverty, so they then struggle. So they create a vicious circle. So I'm really interested, especially some kind of courses which are related to formulation of policies with regard to development, but keeping in mind the humanitarian principles or humanitarian operations, that how we can sustain the development, or we can sustain the results which we have produced through different projects or programs without having significant interruption. Though natural disaster we cannot avoid, but there are certain disasters which are man-made. So how the development practitioners, through the participation of communities, can reduce these kind of disruptions.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I see, Molly. I don't know if you wanted to speak up, or it looks like maybe you're on public transportation.
Can you hear me all right?
We can, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I'm on the bus on my way to campus. But yeah, thanks for being here today. I'm Molly. I'm in the Heller MBA program, and I'm interested in learning more about Save the Children. I first heard about them when I was studying abroad in Jordan, and my career path sort of took me away from international type work, and I ended up working with refugees and immigrants here in the US for 4 years, but I'm still interested in learning a little bit more about the international development sector as well. So yeah, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Anyone else want to introduce themselves and what they would like? Otherwise, maybe we can get started in answers or talk about some of these things, these areas. Rose?
Hi, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. So my name is Rose, and I'm a second year SID student, and I'm currently doing my practicum with Waddell. And I will be graduate in May 2023. So I hoping to learn anything about Save the Children. I heard about the organization because I'm originally based in Myanmar, so I know Save the Children does a lot of projects activities back in my country. So I wanted to learn more about what Save the Children's doing, especially on education sector, because I'm very passionate about in education, focusing on program, because my background is more like program management and M&E systems. So I am really wanted to hear any opportunities as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rose. Well, I have to say that it's really the thing that gives me probably the most energy is hearing from all of you. And I see Sonam, who I know and who is with Save the Children doing her internship. So hi, Sonam. Lovely to have you in the room as well. But this is really, hearing all of you and your experiences is actually quite incredible, right? something that I miss from my Heller time. And so I'll try to cover a few of the topics that you all said. I'll quickly just introduce myself. So I'm Farhat Jilabhoy, right? Currently, I'm Senior Director of Strategy at Save the Children US. And Save the Children, we are a big affiliated model, which means that there's Save the Children US, there's Save the Children International, there's Save the Children UK and Korea, and then all of our country offices. We're in, I think, 160 countries. You know, maybe that number is slightly off, but we're in a lot of places. You know, the US is the biggest member, so we bring in half of all fundraising. We're $1 billion organization just in the US of revenue every year. But I will say, you know, I'm happy to talk about anything SAVE or not SAVE related. I think Daisy noticed I have jumped around a lot in my career. I've followed my passions. I've really tried to use that as an asset, right? And I encourage you all have such rich backgrounds to find your paths and try out new things. And I know there was an MBA student here. I couldn't quite afford the MBA program. Your SID scholarships were a lot more generous. And so I just sat in on those MBA classes, which got me into strategic planning and strategy work. But so happy to talk about SAVE, but again, connect from other areas. In terms of my background, I will say I've done a lot of things. I am not I think Jasmine may have introduced me as a humanitarians aid specialist. I don't know that that's necessarily how I would describe myself. I would say I have a lot of varied talents. Primarily, I do strategic planning for organizations, but I have done grassroots work with the Peace Corps. I have managed country programs through Catholic Relief Services and worked on country programs. I would say my general, I've worked for foundations, like I have done a lot of different things in the sector. And I think my general attitude is if I don't know it, I probably want to learn it, right? Like, so that's kind of jumping around the sector and trying to learn and get my hands dirty. So I think that there were some questions around humanitarian policies and courses and stuff like that. I would say probably not the best expert on that. But Save the Children, we do both international work and actually domestic work as well. So I forgot exactly, maybe it was Molly who asked about that. We do have domestic programming, and then we also do international work. And we work in 4 primary areas, right? So education really is one of them. Again, domestically, we have Head Start programs. We do a lot of community impact work, which is around getting, working with other NGOs to form collectives and communities and doing rural development work. Most of our programs in the US are in rural areas, and we have a high focus on education. But we do things like homeschool connection, focus on access and quality education. We have a big portfolio of health work. So some of the areas that we focus are around malnutrition, particularly maternal and child malnutrition, vaccines programs, equity. So also because I lead strategy, I can go into all of this in as much depth as you want, but I have a pretty good, organization-wide view, but that's some of our health portfolio that's quite big and in depth. We do a lot of conflict, protecting children in crisis and conflict. Half of our work is humanitarian, and if you actually look at our strategy, we don't put it in a bucket because it's across health, education, protecting children in conflict, which is a lot of gender-based violence work. We do digital harm, we do a lot of different types of conflict work. And then another area is, we call it safety nets and resilient families. So a lot of our cash voucher assistance work is another area that we focus on. And then working on livelihoods for young people. And then we have some cross-sectional work that we're on. So Sonam is on our gender team. And so we have a gender and social equity cross-functional initiatives, work on climate change. We do research and data is a huge part of our work. And then we have a lot of what we call enablers, which I won't go into, but there's a huge trend and focus around shifting power. We call it our data and digital work, so around monitoring and evaluation, trend analysis. We do policy advocacy and campaign work. It's integrated in everything that we do because it's part of our theory of change. And then, of course, the revenue and the revenue building pieces of it. A few folks were asking about work in their home countries. I will say that part of our, I would say there's two parts to this. One, as I mentioned, we're an affiliated model, right? So there is a Save the Children Liberia that is separate from where I work, which is Save the Children US, which sometimes I think that can be very confusing for an outsider. But there are opportunities in those country programs. There's a huge push to hire locally. And so I think that that's really important and that's an asset. So having the skills and the talents that you do and going to your home country and applying for those positions, I think that makes you very highly qualified. And that's something that we're looking for more and more. And we are very serious about. And then I'm trying to see some questions that were asked were around our internship. So our internships we do, and Sonam can actually tell you, would love for you to be able to speak up and participate in this. But actually it was through Sonam that I learned a lot about our internship program because I found it hard to navigate or understand what was going on, and Jasmine walked me through it as well. So did it just start snowing? There's a sun shower outside my window, which is quite incredible to see. It's like heavy snow and sunny. So
It's
sorry
not
for
here
that.
yet.
It's not there yet? Okay, I
Not
live
in
in
Waltham yet.
Arlington, so it's coming to you in Waltham. It was just like a minute, but or it's a few minutes. Anyhow, yeah, so I mean, I can go into our internships, and then I also realize that I'm speaking very fast and sharing a lot of information. So also feel free to stop me. So maybe I'll go through the internship and then pause a moment and see if there's any kind of questions or reflections. But our internships, we hire 3 times a year, and we do, it is a formal application process. It's really I think important as an employer that we are equitable. And so what we do is we both in interviewing and finding the best candidates for internships, and then also in terms of paying interns. So we do pay $16 an hour. Folks can work up to 24 hours a week. And there's fall, spring, and summer internships, and they are posted online, and there is a formal internship program. And so I'm going to go and turn it over to Sonam to talk a little bit more maybe about it, like what your experience has been like. You could share too if you don't mind, or if there's anything your classmates should know about the process.
Sure. Thank you, Farhat. But so I'm doing my gender equality fellowship with Save the Children US right now. It's definitely been it's been a wonderful experience for me, at least, because although I'm only there for like 3 months, the team has been very, very inclusive. They've put me in almost a lot of their projects, and currently working on a USAID funded project with the team, as well as also working on generating tip sheets as well as evidence brief on the JESA toolkit. And one thing that at least Andy, my own supervisor, has really encouraged me to do is he's really encouraged me to network with a lot of the people I'm currently in conversation with. And that's something that I feel has been such a great experience, because I feel a lot of times in internship opportunities, your supervisors don't give you that opportunity to network with other individuals. So definitely getting the whole global perspective, as well as the global experience, as well as the networks and connections. So there are a lot of opportunities there. I think we do have a fellowship with SOJIC, is it, Farhat, if you know, I don't know if you're aware of that. The social and gender equality, I think SOJIC fellowship just came out. So, yep, definitely.
Is that with Heller specific?
No, it's with Save the Children.
Oh, yes.
Fellowship is there, open. It's an open application, yeah.
Yeah, so all the internships were and fellowships were recently posted. So it's not, it is in your group too, but it's all across the board. So you can take a look. I think they'll be starting the interview processes for spring internship soon. So I'm gonna pause there for a moment because I just covered a lot of information very quickly. Any questions about or the areas that you'd like me to go into more depth, from what I just spoke about?
Yes, I had a question.
Go ahead.
Hi. Hi. So you said that research and data is a huge part of your work. I was, I'm interested in developing my data skills here at Heller. I've taken STATA and taken GIS, and I'll be taking MNE next semester. And so what I'm wondering is, what kind of skills are you looking for in relation to those things, specifically like any software skills that you're looking for, or maybe just soft skills?
Yeah, so maybe I used a little bit of collective we, right? So I would say data and digital work we have a whole, I don't know, 100 group team, people of folks who really specialize in that. And that's both, getting systems up from a technology point of view, just getting all of our systems working and functioning. There's people who focus specifically on the monitoring and evaluation. What are the indicators that we track? I'm sure there's certain technology that they work with and on. Kimberly, I would be lying if I got into the very specifics of like hard skills, programs, only because I might be a little bit out of date, from what are the specific technologies that they're using. I'm kind of at the 30,000 foot level, which I like see everything, but then like might not have the specifics. But if that is of interest to you, I'm happy to connect you to other people who might have more information on that. So maybe we can follow up. So if I don't have an answer for you, I can follow up. And I'm not afraid to tell you what I don't know. I've done a lot of things, but I can tell you what I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
But I will say, what I will say about monitoring and evaluation, that was one of the best classes I wound up taking the advanced class. So I will say, like, from a strategy perspective, I might not be into the very nitty gritty of like working might be old school and use Excel sheets, and I might not be using all the fancy technology to aggregate data right now, but it's about having the sniff test. That's really important from where I sit. So I can look at data, and I have done enough of the actual data collection, right? Or can look at the information and see what the trends are. And I can see like, hey, this doesn't make sense, or explain to me why. So I would say from my point of view, what's really important is, can you explain to me, I don't really like, give me a number, but I really want to know what I call the insight. And if you can tell me what the insight is, what's the so what? Why is this important? What does it tell me about the big picture? Are we focused on impact and not outputs? Those are the types of conversations that we're having at a very senior level, right? And then that informs, where do we put more of our resources? So I would say, maybe I can't talk about a specific data management program, but what I will say is I can talk about how data translates into getting financial resources, right? And how it translates into getting people to listen to you, how it translates into getting to scale. Is all about understanding the so what are the implications, what's the cost benefit ratio. We talk a lot about return on investment. So what are we going to be able to get out of this? How do we know what are these common approaches? So that's a lot of what our board asks us around, what do we know are some of the best practices that are happening out there, and how do we replicate them? And we have Nobel Prize winners on program impact on our board who advise us on these things, So those are the types of things that we're looking at. And right now there is actually a focus on randomized control trials and things of that aspect as well at a very broad level.
That's very informative and helpful. Thank you. And I'd love to follow up after.
Sure. Go ahead, Morris.
Hi, Farhat. Thank you again for giving us this opportunity. I just wanted to ask you if what kind of advice would you give someone like me who's, coming out early May and is trying to pursue some kind of career in, working for an institution like maybe Save the Children, with a sustainable international development degree and conflict resolution degree? What kind of advice would you give a guy like me?
Yeah. I think that there's so many directions I could go with this, Morris, right? Because I think I think you have a lot of experience. So I would first of all say, don't just sell yourself as someone who just has this degree. I think all of you, as I heard you speak, come with a lot of depth of experience, right? And so bringing your whole selves to the job market. I have looked for a job many times for very many different reasons, right? And I will say it can be sometimes really discouraging, but I would invite you to kind of lean in and believe in yourself and believe in those experiences and have that I can learn attitude. I think that that's very important for employers, is that this idea that we can give people things, it's a myth that I always say this, it's like a myth that someone knows the answers, right? It's like everybody trying to figure it out together and adapting for those circumstances. I would say, there's a networking component perhaps, but I want to really encourage this team or group to care about people, and that's a different approach to networking, I think. So you have this wonderful group of people here, you have people in your other spheres of life, like maintaining those relationships. And so maybe this isn't just for this May, but I think in life, as you're looking for jobs, to continue caring about people in all your internships and, from your internships from all these different places, because you never know where those people land up. And so to constantly keep in connection with them, and then use your experience. I hope that you all are using your practicums or your internships. They're places that you would want to work, and you are building that network, like Sonam said there. I think that was really, I actually didn't wind up, I stayed with the place that I did my practicum for a bit, but had to change. But I think just getting those skills that that you want to take to wherever you go next is really important. So there's a million job boards, there's a million networking things. Don't let yourself get down, and really pursue, where the thing that you have some passion about. Yeah. Go ahead, Molly.
Hi, yeah. I would love to hear a little bit more about your current role. I think you mentioned that you work in strategic planning, and maybe a little bit about what experiences or skills you felt like really helped you, are currently helping you in this role or helped you get to that role.
Yeah. So Carol Carlson, I took her strategic planning class and loved it. So shout out to her at Heller. I think that's where I took that class. I really loved it. And I wound up going to the Rockefeller Foundation and digging into different parts of their strategic planning and mixing in work that I was working on a project that's now like blown up on rural electricity. I wrote my master's thesis on scaling rural electricity programs, and now it's like over $1 billion initiative. It's quite amazing in the last 10 years what's happened. But I would say, so what does how many of you are even familiar with what strategic planning means or it looks like in an organization? Because it's not really something we talk about in international development that much, right? So it's like, maybe some. So my role currently is I report to the CEO, to the CFO in the Office of the President, and I work with our senior leadership team and our board to develop our 3-year annual goals. Our 3-year goals, it's within a larger 15-year framework, and it's really the North Star for the organization. And then we make sure that on an annual basis, our budget aligns to those priorities. And so does both our financial and then our human resources as well. And then In the interim, we're constantly monitoring. So every quarter we do a dashboard. We work with all across the organization to say, these are the things that are most important. How are we doing? How do we adjust, to manage trends, to manage different things that are happening in the world? How do we support our staff so that way we stay on track, or at least understand we're reflective and understand why we're not hitting our goals and doing our best. So that's what strategic planning is. And I would say the things that have helped me, because I don't have a traditional background, I think that that's helped me, right? Like I feel like because I work across the organization, I'm able to speak to people who are doing very, very different things and understand them. So yes, it's some of those hard skills like taking classes in strategic planning. It's having some of those, I worked as a consultant and learned from some really great people. I think a lot of it was learning by doing and having some really good mentors, some of them really tough mentors, right? Wasn't easy to work with, but I learned a lot from them. But then also being able to apply it and then be able to talk to a very broad audience. So I might not know the nitty gritty of how you're doing that GIS system, but I can at least know enough from my classes at Heller, from doing different work, to be able to talk to it or why it's important and then translate it more broadly. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Go ahead. Gervais.
Sorry, I have a question that to what extent, when you are going for a strategic planning or shift in a strategy which has not worked, people are very familiar with, or they get used to some kind of work, they in operation, they are very familiar, and how much the stereotype or a kind of going easy for many people, you kind of making changes in the policy for organization that, look, we are going to shift our narrative or our approach to these areas. These are the burning areas, and these are something we should now exclude, because it's an institution work with the international organization helping people across the country. So to what extent the local priorities or the office in the United States influence or became a hurdle in achieving the larger objective of humanitarian response in many countries, like how that can be balanced? Because I remain part of in the strategic planning process, and sometimes the institution itself remain a barrier in achieving its external objectives, especially with the countries they have committed to contribute to improve the life.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's a really astute observation. I think one of the hardest things is for people to stop doing things. I think that's the hardest question people have to answer. So you see that something's coming and we need to change course, and so people will say, okay, let's try to keep adding, but no one wants to stop doing certain things that if you don't have the time and the resources and the energy, you can only dedicate to so many things. So I think that that's one area where we're always pushing the conversation. I don't think we don't always achieve that, right? And I think that especially at big organizations, disruptive change can be really hard, and I was just on a call right before this with strategy professionals from a bunch of big organizations, just talking about that is that it's sometimes the bigger you are, the slower it is to change. Whereas I don't know if anyone was with Isaac from Peace First, who joined that conversation a few weeks ago at Heller. He's also on the alumni board, and I used to work there. And I've just seen in a very short time a big monumental shift and change in the way that they work and operate since I worked there. So, and it's a much smaller organization. So I will say that, yeah, Isaac is awesome. Okay, anyone else? Some good questions. I love it. Yeah, Tenzin.
Hi. As you know, I'm looking for jobs. I've been through so many, requirements of the Save Children, and constantly I'm finding, most of the requirements are meeting, but at the final part, they have a preferential requirement of speaking in Spanish and writing Spanish. So what do you think about that?
I think apply anyway. I mean, yeah, yeah. If it's a preferred skill, I think apply anyway. I think if it's at Save the Children US, I think it's only if you're working directly in a country. If you were to work in Latin America, and you weren't to speak Spanish, that might be a problem. But if it's but if it's a position that's more general based, I think then it's a preferred and apply. And I think just a lot of people, and I know this is more with women, but I think a lot of us do it too, is we don't see, we're like, oh, we're ticking it off and we don't fit every single thing, so we don't apply. Well, I'll tell you, having sat on many, many interview panels, sometimes we're looking for unicorns, right? Those people actually don't exist. And so it's better that, you apply, because you don't know, they might actually realize like we need something like this, or Tenzin has 10 years of experience in this other thing that's actually more important than something else. So yeah.
Thank you so much. That's
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You have a few more minutes if other people have questions, and I'm sorry, I haven't been watching the chat, so if there's anything too much, if there's anything, let me know.
No. You're good in the chat.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a very small question because we all work with the development sector and changing projects frequently. Like I changed 5-6 organizations, started with Akhan Foundation and now ended with some kind of big project with European Union. So as the age fades, how you say that this kind of nomadity, like a nomad life in development sector, moving from one to another, how your specific professional capacity, like I belong to M&E, how that gives you, is it a good thing to change institution frequently because or you should stick with an institution and then look into growth, because the age may be a factor or sometimes the salary may be a factor in switching the job. So what is your advice, expert advice? You remain in the sector. I've gone through your profile. You frequently change the job. Where you put yourself today, that like 5 years down the road, where you see it? You will stay with the Save the Children or move to some greener
You're
pasture?
recording this session. Of course I'm staying with Save the Children. No. I think that's a really personal question. And I don't think that there is a one size fits all. I think right now I truly am at a place where I do want to root down a bit, but it was interesting because before I got to Save the Children, I was laid off in 2020 during COVID. And then I was doing consulting work, different types of consulting work, etc. And it was a hard time. There was a lot of stuff going on. And, if anyone's gone through a layoff, you already have your self-doubts. And it's like, as you're interviewing places, they're like, oh, you've stayed someplace 2 years, whatever. There's actually, then the shift I think that happened in me was I was like, no, all my experiences are amazing. What you don't know, and I started telling them the depth of the stories. I said, what you don't know is my first job at the Rockefeller Foundation, I started as an admin person. Now there was, I think, like almost 15 years ago. That person is still my mentor. She's hired me at 3 of my jobs. That's a story you don't know. I said, you don't know that I worked at this organization Youth Build, but at Catholic Relief Services, I managed their youth build programs and scaled them globally. So I started telling that story. I said, what you don't know is, and I was fired up. I'm like, I'm pretty awesome. And if you don't like me for all those varied experiences that I have, then I don't want to work here. And what I do bring to the table is that I can talk to everybody. I can talk at a senior level. I can talk to the person who's working in your program doing the work. I can talk to the stakeholder in Spanish, right? Like, even though I'm Indian, Like I can do all these things. And so I think it's owning your story and where you are. And there were very, and just like, you know, if you're at a place in your life where you need to root down and you don't want to have changes, that's awesome. Stay, have depth. But if you're at a place where you know that you could be doing more, or you're not doing exactly what you want and you want to take some of those leaps, weigh your own pros and cons and do that, right? That's what I'll say.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. You guys ask really great questions. And someone told me that they're like, I went to Georgetown and I came to a Heller session, and the students are amazing. They ask such good questions, you know, like, and I think that's so true. So keep them coming as long as you want, or we can end early.
Yeah, I had a question. I just wanted to get a sense of your career trajectory, because it seems like you've worked in so many different places, but specifically like beginning with Heller, like what classes or whatever resources or networks here did you find very helpful in, you know, after you got your degree, and finding like jobs or internships or anything like that?
Yeah. So a few things. I came to Heller probably, I had worked for a few years. So I was, to me, it was like, I was very specific about the courses I wanted to take, right? I was like, I kind of know what I'm good at. I want to work on the areas I'm not so good at, or the areas I want to grow at. So in that sense, I came with that kind of mindset. And something I very much appreciate is that the professors had a lot of practical experience. So I think classes that I took that have served me really well, planning and implementation, which was like a required class that we all took, and we had to do this group project, which I'm still, keep in touch with that group. I had my advanced monitoring and evaluation, so I could have that sniff test or have that understanding. Of course, I talked about the strategic planning courses. Like those are some of them that I really remember and stand out, and things that I use a lot of those lessons over time. Yeah, that log frame and problem tree is like every proposal that you write. And then there was like a lot of proposal writing classes that I took too, which actually are really helpful, even from like a strategic planning mindset. I think people don't understand, like I've written a lot of proposals, but if you know how to explain things to people, and do you know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, how to convince someone or how to explain someone, it's very helpful. And so I think all of that was really important. I would say there was a few things at Heller that I did. Your career department is amazing. I have come back many, many times and said, I need help with my resume, my cover letter, like I think I've asked a lot for that, like, please help me. And people have given me such great advice, whether it's connections, sometimes just talking it out. Like when I was laid off from my position, I remember, I think it was Benny who just met me at a coffee shop in Harvard Square and was like, I said, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I think I reconnected with Carol Carlson at that time, and that wasn't that long ago. Your professors, all these people are there for you. And then I will say, when I talked about caring about people earlier, that starts with each and every one of you in this room caring about your colleagues, your peers, because I will say I can go almost anywhere in the world and there is a Heller person that I can stay with, that I can call. I will say that we have come across each other in different jobs and throughout these different places. And I would also say, like, and yes, they have maybe given me references for things, or helped me practice the interview skills, or just been a really good brain trust, right? Like sometimes when you're looking for a job, you just need to talk to that other person who's either looked for a job or got in one. And that can be a really great source of inspiration. So you have a lot of great classes and tools and networks that I would really encourage you to maintain and tap into.
I don't want to prevent the opportunity for folks to talk to Farhat. Farhat, I have to say, you made me a little bit nervous about my job because you said all the things that I say that we hope that students hear in a very articulate and clear and compelling way. I can just tell from the energy in the room, so to speak, that this has been a really high value conversation. And I appreciate personally your candor about your experience and your very significant calls for a couple of things. Tell your own story. Your stories, all of your stories are really compelling and important. And, you know, I always say, one of my mentors told me, don't compare, connect. And the connection is all of the people here. The connection is connecting your story internally to itself. And so I really, really appreciated your time. And I also appreciate you being willing to record. And I thank everyone in the room for that.
No, it's so great to be here. It's really true. You all have amazing stories and potential. And frankly, we'd be lucky to have each and every one of you working at at any place, you know, because you don't just bring your Heller skills, you bring a lot of life experience. And I think when I hear where you all have come from and the things that you're doing, we need more of these people like you in the rooms and hearing your voices. So just want to really encourage you with that as well. Please feel free to reach out. Yeah, great. LinkedIn is honestly, like, if you want to connect with me there, I'll put my saved email in the chat. You can connect there as well. Oops, I think I sent that as a direct message accidentally. So I'll put it for everyone. But good luck, and I look forward to seeing where all of you wind up and hearing your stories.
Yeah.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your kind time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.